Hey, Rob, it's all yours.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. I'd like to inform everybody that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communication director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. Is there anyone else making an audio recording of today's meeting? If so, please identify yourself. If you're joining virtually, please press the raise your hand icon on the Zoom dashboard. Or if you're joining by phone, by pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
I don't have anybody.
Okay, Sean, thanks. Pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 as amended, Port Council members are participating remotely in today's meeting because of their physical attendance today would be unreasonably difficult. All Port Council members in attendance and all members participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app will be clearly audible to each other. As a result of members' remote participation in this meeting, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call vote. I guess I would ask for an approval of the minutes of the
So
previous
moved.
meeting.
So
Do I hear a
moved.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to hear your votes, please. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
John?
Pittsburgh, aye.
Gordon?
Hi.
Rob Munir, aye. Thank you. So moving on to the agenda to the management report. Bob, over to you.
Good morning. So first item we have is an update on the MB Aquinnah and MB Barnstable. So Mark's been sent down. Oh, no, it's not necessary.
Okay.
So Mark is down in Mobile, so get a fresh update from him.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey,
Morning,
Mark.
Morning.
Okay, we're coming down the stretch for the Barnstable and Aquinnah projects, and if we can get the first slide up there, Sean. Okay, this is we've got the superstructure painted. I don't know what that beam is coming out from the center part, but I guess we have to give something to the cameraman. Next photo. So we got all the decks completed now. These pictures are about a week old and they've all been completed. That's the bulwark in front of the anchor windlass, and the superstructure is complete. Next slide. So the superstructure is completely painted now, and the decks are completed in their final colors. Next slide. This is the new passenger area. Now that the difference now is all the panels are up, and we're going to be next week doing the final pour of the floor and start getting the overheads in place. Next slide. This is a switchboard. What we've done is we've added a new type of Woodward governor, voltage regulator, which will do auto starts, auto phasing, completely automating the switchboard in case of in the unintended where we would have a blackout, a generator would automatically come on and phase onto the board. Next slide. This is kind of the motley crew. We've got a crew of 8 people down here in the finals, including from left to right, Captain Corbett and retiring Captain Charlie Montero, myself, Will Langlois, he's a port engineer, Chief Engineer Sean Barkowski, Chief Engineer Bond, Sven Cruz, a project manager, and Captain Norman DeBarros. Next slide. So milestones coming up, power up with vessel. We're going to do the engine starts on the 12th. Mechanical accommodations complete on the 17th. Incline stability test on the 18th. dock trials on the 21 of June, sea trials on the 8th, and we'll be heading north on or about the 15th of July. So good stuff coming for the Barnstable, and I can't wait to get it up north. So the financial dashboard at this point, we've got 13.7 million per vessel in the main contract, 1.5 million in change orders. So we're at a total of 15.2 million per vessel. Any questions?
Any
Yeah, Mark,
questions of the board
Yeah,
council? Joe?
Mark, yeah, why is there almost gonna be a 5-month delay? We expected these originally in May, and now we're not gonna get them in service until probably September.
Well, number one, we don't have the crew down here, but the main reason is last summer we had a pretty high heat wave, and we put in the yard put in a force majeure. Quite frankly, it was very hot down there, and the areas of work were approaching 140 degrees. We got some delays in there, and probably the largest delays we've had, we had some new rules imposed on us by the US Coast Guard where they totally changed the evacuation routes on the vessel. Subsequently, we had to put in multiple new doors and new ladderways to get from the O1 deck down to the forecastle deck, and ran into a supply chain of the doors where it came to approaching the actual delivery date of 4 months. I think the yard has done an outstanding job. I think when the vessels get up here, the work is outstanding. And this is not, we're running into something in supply chain which is affecting every shipyard across the country. I wish I would have loved to have this up sooner. It just if I can't get delivery of supply chain, I can't move ahead with certain aspects of the project.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Mark and everyone involved. I'm not concerned about the delay. I'm concerned about the right thing being done. And that's the most important thing, because these boats are the next decade of, it gets us through to the next phase of how we move forward with vessel replacement. And it's so important to get these right. So what we're dealing with now with the scheduling is obviously a problem, not having one of these up here, but at the same time, getting them right and everything in place that needs to be done is ultimately more important. Inside seating, Mark, are we gonna have tables and stuff like the Sankaty kind of a sort of a better version of the Sankaty's interior? How are we doing that? How's that gonna look?
Well, first of all, it's complete ADA. We're going to have an ADA water closet on just at the entry, just outside that area. We have approximately 80 seats, the combination benches, tables. It's a completely new installation. I think it'd be very well received.
And plugs. I see a lot of wires coming out of the walls.
A lot of wires.
Good. Thank you.
Any other
Mr.
questions? Mark, I just, you showed the one near-term schedule. How does that look?
It looks very good. We are finishing up the piping right now. Our next step is to get into operations. We've been preparing for this for the past 6 months as far as getting power on the switchboards, and still got a lot of work to do, but that schedule seems to me very realistic.
So mid-July.
Mid-July.
Okay.
Well, it'll be mid-July when they leave the Mobile, and then another 8 to 10 days to sail them up.
Yep.
Or sail the Barnstable up. The Aquinnah will follow about a month later.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bob, back to you.
Right, so the next item, staff just wanted to provide a brief update on the reconstruction of Woods Hole Terminal Project in the terminal building and the utility building. I think Sean is
Yeah.
coming in.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Sean.
Hello,
Morning.
Sean.
Right. Next slide, please. It's just showing a couple drill rigs that we were finishing up the last row down in the vehicle staging area. As of May 17th, we have mobilized up to the construction staging area, the employee parking area. So we are doing no work down below now. It's peak season, so we've moved upward to accommodate, the terminal operations. Next slide, please. As of May 31st, we have 20 out of the 27 geothermal wells in the vehicle staging area completed. We will have to come back September 9th when we're allowed to resume work down there to finish the last 7 wells to drill, and then we'll have to do the lateral piping and bring it towards the new terminal building for future entry into the building. Next slide, please. These show the 12 wells up by employee parking lot. These are for the utility building. As of last week, we finished all 12 wells drilling and placing the loops. They demob, and they will be back. I'm trying to set up Lawrence Lane, so I saw a contractor to do the trenching for the laterals. We'll probably start, line them up when we start excavating them for the utility building foundation. Next slide, please. This is supportive excavation wall for the utility building. This is just to prevent the existing boulder retaining wall from collapsing while we're doing our excavation for the foundation of the utility building. Next slide, please. This is just showing the 2 drill rigs up above in the employee parking lot. Next slide, please. This was back May 17th, the final day we worked down below in the staging area. We were doing some cleanup. That morning we had a lot of rain. We did patch the areas last week, so there are no open wells. They're all capped and asphalted over. Next slide, please. Just another view from our security cameras, overall view of them finishing up in the upper parking area. Next slide, please. Just another angle of the drill rigs up in the upper parking lot. Next slide, please. As of today, I did have a change order not listed on here last month, but it wasn't actually for the this contract. It was for the design, architectural, engineering side of the contract. So this the pricing has not changed from the GC work. It's at $32,134,531. I think that's it. Any questions, please?
Any questions from the Port Council? Sean, this is Rob. Just curious about what's the diameter of the geothermal pipes or drill rig you're drilling?
The holes we're drilling are 6 inches, but the loop goes down. There's 2 loops. There's one goes down and it loops that back up. They're both 1 inch, and they'll connect to, once they start doing the laterals, they'll connect to 1 1/4 inch, and then depending on which building, it'll increase until the terminal building will have 2-inch lines going into the building. The utility building only has 1.5 inches.
Did you run into any boulders on your way down?
That's been a fight and battle, yes. The test well that we received from 2 years ago said it was all sand, silty sand up above. We had boulders down to 70 feet and then cobbles.
Mhm.
So it wasn't as easy as everybody thought. Actually, it was easier getting through the boulders and the cobbles up above than down below here because it was all gravelly sand and the wells kept on caving in after. So we removed the drill rods, tried to get the loop in. It collapsed several times, so they'd have to, re-drill. It took a lot longer down below than up above.
Yeah, looks like a heck of a project. Thank you. Other questions? Okay, Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
The only other thing on this project is we've issued 234 updates on the project to date. Continue to send out weekly notice, updates on what's going on with the project, so.
Thank you. Okay, Bob, back to you.
All right, so the next item we have on the agenda is just a quick update on the website.
Morning, gentlemen. Next slide, please. As you can see by the slide, there's 37 to-do items on the list that are outstanding. 16 outstanding in development, 9 ready for review, 154 as of last week approved by the SSA since March 13th. I would like to draw your attention to the right-hand side of the presentation. Each corresponding line. Where there are 37 to-do items presently, there were previously 55 when we last met. 16 presently in development, there were 13 previously. 9 ready for review, 33 presently, but most importantly, 154 presently approved, where there were 83 previously approved, just to indicate the velocity and speed of this project. Site security has been approved. Load testing remains in progress. Site monitoring remains in progress. And the work necessary to get Google Play Store up and running is complete. Next slide, please. Based on the commentary from the last time we met on May 7th, which was a recommendation for a September launch, we have altered our timeline to accommodate such a timeline. We are not relying on the September timeline. We are continuing to work towards a timeline in advance of September, but we do believe a September timeline is reasonable and more appropriate based on the time of year. So the internal beta runs 4/15 through 7/26 with test credit cards. August 6th through the 10th will be internal beta using live credit cards. August 13th through August 24th will be limited public beta. And then September, we will have the public launch using live credit cards. And if you recall from our last time we met, that will be in parallel to the present website. Once we have determined over the course of a month or two that the new website is functioning as anticipated, we will remove the current website and rely solely on the new website. Next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see this is the original timeline that we have presented in the past. Next slide, please. And the current timeline in the middle of the page, highlighted in yellow, is the extended testing period, May through July. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Any questions from the Port Council? I guess the Gordon, go ahead.
And you may have discussed this earlier and I have missed it. What is the public communication to people that there is going to be this public beta website, right? Are we letting folks know that that's happening? Is it going to be more virtual? Like how is the public going to sort of learn that this is happening when it's happening?
Sean Driscoll, Director of Communications, and his staff will take full notification of the audience that we're targeting.
Yeah, Gordon, we do have a communication plan in place for the launch. It'll include virtual channels in addition to print notifications and news release, e-news, all that stuff. So we have a plan ready to launch as soon as the website's ready for it.
Great, thanks.
I'm curious, I appreciate all the statistics that show the progress and the pace. Can you kind of give a more sort of intuitive feel for how things are going, the quality of what you're seeing, anything about your perception of the outcome based on where we are now, the testing that's been happening so far, and your just general feeling about the quality of the outcome?
Sure. The user interface of the new website is certainly significantly feature rich in comparison to the old. I think it's much more highly intuitive to the end user. Most scenarios at this point have been validated and tested. There are some outlying scenarios that still continue to require additional development, but all in all, the feature-rich nature of the website looks pretty good.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, so next up, want to provide a update on the status of the Fairhaven vessel maintenance dredge project. Is Mark coming over again?
No.
This was a project that's being done in conjunction with the Greater New Bedford Harbor Dredge project there on the Fairhaven side of the harbor now, I understand. So just had a quick update, and if Mark isn't on, and well, I can do it.
He's coming.
I'm back here. Okay, so the project is ongoing. It started in May, and this photo here shows the dredge and the that's ongoing inside the boom on the south side of the slip at Fairhaven Maintenance. Next slide. So today we're looking at on the south side, on the south berth, an estimated completion date of 14 June. The total projected removal is 5,844 cubic yards. And on the 28th of May, we have had removed 1,278 cubic yards. When that's done, it'll move over to the north slip, where we have a projection of 742 cubic yards to be removed, and appreciate the dredging. This will be a real good step for Fairhaven Maintenance. Any questions?
Any questions from the Port Council? Mark, I have one. I'm just curious about the permitting process you went through, just at a high level.
That was actually done. I don't have that information in front of me, but that was done, I believe, by the port. We're the beneficiary of it. Bob, you may have something to add in that.
Yeah.
I can take it too, Bob, if you want, you know. So without getting into exhaustive detail, this phase, what we call the phase 5 dredging project, which is 33 locations throughout the harbor, both public and private dredging locations, are is permitted under what's called the SER process, which stands for State Enhanced Remedy. It is tied to the Superfund, Marine Superfund cleanup of the PCB contamination in New Bedford Harbor. And any project that will advance that cleanup effort has a vastly expedited permitting process. And so all of the dredging that's being done is maintenance dredging of primarily contaminated sediment and soils, which will be deposited in the what are called CAD cells, the confined aquatic disposal cells in Bedford Harbor. And because of that, that vastly expedites the permitting process. And so even the public or private entities are having their dredging enabled in a way that could never have been done without that process and without the state grant that is covering the majority of the cost of the dredging. So I never thought I'd be so excited about a dredging project, but it's incredibly complex. We've had a great cooperation with Mark and his team on the timing of dredging that site in particular. You know, we needed to do a bunch of the marina sites in the wintertime, so they would be ready. So the scheduling kind of dance has been a bit of a trick, but we're looking forward to having that piece done. So does that's
Yeah. I knew that it was non-trivial, but now we know why.
yes.
What do you do with the spoil?
So this sounds like an idea I would come up with, but the cleanup process is you find a clean spot in the harbor and you dig a massive hole, which is the CAD cell, confined aquatic disposal. So you find clean sediment, remove it, deposit contaminated sediment, and then cap it. So you're sequestering the PCB contaminated sediment in these CAD cells. There are, I think now 4 in the northern part of the harbor for this. And that removes the really costly either offshore disposal, if that was even an option, or the onshore disposal of the contaminated materials. So it is much less expensive and much more efficient to do it that way. And that's all done under the EPA's guidance and the what's called the SER committee, which includes the EPA and the Army Corps and the State Department of Environmental Protection and all the others that monitor all of the projects permitted under that regime.
How big are these CAD cells?
They're big. I mean, they vary in size, but you're talking hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of space. The largest individual site under the dredging program, I think, is what we call the Foss Marine Terminal now, which is the old power plant on the New Bedford side of the harbor. And I think combined, they're dredging 80,000 cubic yards of material. So when you add it all up, you need a big hole. So
yeah, that's really informative. Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate that. Now we know we have a subject matter expert on the topic of dredging.
I have exhausted my project right
So,
there. So
we've got the waterfront covered, I think.
no further questions, right?
Thanks.
Yeah,
Any other
it was a
questions
great, it was a great opportunity to be able to partner with the New Bedford Harbor to get this done as a maintenance dredge for our facility.
Yeah, it sounds terrific. Thank you.
Before Mark leaves, I just have you all. So Mark, his title is changing instead of Director of Marine Operations because he's been spending so much time on the vessels and the maintenance side of it. He's going to be Director of Engineering and Maintenance going forward. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
I think that's a congratulations.
It is, I think so.
No, I appreciate what you do, Mark.
All right, so next item we have is, we find ourselves in a position where, we need to be making some modifications to the summer operating schedule, in order to, what we feel is, necessary based on staffing levels. So, Allison's here as well, we can walk through it. I think, the original schedule.
I just had the modifications, I think, want the original first.
The original first. Yeah.
You can-
So the changes that are being done right now, on the, Hyannis Nantucket route, we'll continue to double crew the INO, through the September 5th schedule. Which means it's 4 trips a day. And then on the Woods Hole, to the Vineyard schedule, we're looking at the freight boat, which is Monday through Friday, 3 trips a day, single crew. We're looking to eliminate that in Allison.
So in regards to all that, what we're also looking at is taking the Woods Hole, which is scheduled to be on the Hyannis route, and swapping that out with the Sankaty and keeping the Sankaty down in Hyannis. So you'll have the Eagle, Gayhead, and Sankaty running triple crewed in Hyannis. And then keeping the Woods Hole on the Woods Hole run, where we would have that triple crewed running in place of the Governor until September 5th. And then we would have the Island Home, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and Woods Hole running on the Vineyard route. By doing this, unfortunately, both islands are going to take a slight hit in regards to space availability. But this was one of the better options that we had into keeping that at a limited amount of space that we're losing for both runs. Yep.
So this is the summer schedule starting on June 17th.
Okay, thank you. So, any questions from the Port
Yep.
Council?
Allison, how many spaces are now going to be diminished because of this coming to the Vineyard? Because I know most of us on the Vineyard, we love the Governor.
I know. And so what happened with Governor is roughly it holds 5 semis to 6 straights. And we've opted to keep the Woods Hole running in its place because that would hold 9 semis and 3 straights. And that'll help absorb some of the misplaced trucks from the single crewed Sankaty that no longer is running.
Yep.
So it's mostly on the Vineyard end, you're seeing a reduction in truck space. So.
Can we get a copy of that email to us of what the new schedule is going to be?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Actually, it's in the packet, I believe.
Is it? Okay, I'll double check. I went through it quickly. Thank you.
Just let me know, Joe, and I'll get it to you.
The adjusted schedules are on the website as well, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I'm just gonna, Mr. Chair, I'll just make a comment just real quick. I just want to say that this, I understand exactly what they've done and I see no other solution. And all the little moving parts, Joe, with this are really hard to explain here at this meeting, but I will say to you, you're getting a pretty good deal out of this, just so you know. We are not, but it's the right thing for the whole authority, both islands' routes. And you know, this is something that is, we've never seen this before. This is a new, you know, brave new world of solutions. And hopefully this is the last time this has to happen. So
I know over here, I get a lot of questions asked. That's why the reasons I'm asking.
it is hard to, and so do I, Joe. And I tell you what, it is hard to answer them.
I know, it's hard to explain. It
really is. And that's why it's frustrating. But what they're doing with this particular thing is going to work. It's just going to be a lot of audible at the line of scrimmage decision making. How's that sound?
Right now too. And right now too, there are some trips that are on hold right now while we are moving trucks and vehicles around. I hope to have the first 2 weeks of June done this week, so we can at least get those trips all back open and going. And I will be after this meeting starting July and that funness, so.
And I want to thank Allison because I know you're doing all of this manually,
Yes,
which is difficult to do.
giant, large pads of paper, my new
Yes.
best friends.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gordon, in case you didn't notice, I mean, you're now the subject matter expert on dredging. Nat has been our subject matter expert on scheduling, and he is the one guy that can understand the arcanery of all of this.
Picturing a wall with yarn and pins like being around like, yeah,
You're not too far off on that.
I can tell you that this last month it's like I'm starting over, figuring the stuff out, and I've got it figured out with this part, but wow, if we had the Barnstable, we'd be all set on our route for that, losing the Woods Hole. But that's not the case right now, and we have to take this is the right thing for the vineyard to get the Woods Hole. And that is not easy for me to say that, but it is
Thank
the
you,
right
Nat.
thing. It is.
We're recording this meeting, correct?
Yeah, I'm just telling the truth. I don't make stuff up. That is a fact. So
It's just a question on what the obligations are we have for informing the public. I mean, I know it's already been out there, but I mean, I know normally with the schedule, we publish them, we have hearings and so on and so forth. Obviously we must have the latitude to do this. What are the steps what is the process for making audibles at the line of scrimmage like we are?
So since this is a reduction in the level of service, we didn't have to go through the process of having it posted for public comment. Obviously, letting our customers know as soon as possible about any changes that may take place as Allison and the reservation team are going through, and there's, it's not ideal because we've already booked, all the truck space for the summertime. We've already opened it up for the car space, and so to be moving things around, it's a labor intensive process to get this done, but we'll get there. The schedule itself, as Sean said, is posted on the website. Most of our brochures, unlike in the past, have just a QR code or reference to, they don't.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
We
That
put the
was
schedule
COVID.
back in?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to change the brochures. So, sorry, I missed that.
It's in process.
So, but we'll be getting a revised schedules out there. And thankfully, for the most part, these are freight boat trips that are being affected, which generally don't end up being on published schedules anyways, because we're concerned about whether they're hazardous or whether they're on for passenger because of passenger cutoffs. So
And Mashpee had started last week with the Hyannis to Nantucket route because it's mostly vehicles that are being moved. They're able to get them onto other trips on the same day for the most part. If they want, we put them back on a wait list if they're not happy with the reservation they were changed to, and moved them up on the priority of the wait list because it wasn't their fault that boat's no longer running and they can't get on the trip that they wanted to. So they've already been starting to reach out to that as early as last week. On the Vineyard route, actually for both routes, all shippers were sent out a letter informing them that their summer reservations may be changing. So they're aware that when the changes do start happening, they're not getting blindsided. They were also all given a phone call as well after the email went out to remind them to check their emails, because, we all get a little busy and don't always see our emails. And then what we're gonna do is once June is done for the trucks, they'll send out the month of June's new reservations to those shippers, and then we'll do the same thing for July, August, and September.
Okay,
That's it.
putting my, wearing my Falmouth hat and not being a scheduling expert, was there any way of considering the 5:30 boat in this mix of changes?
We needed it more than ever at this point. But we also are keeping with the agreement of nothing over 38 feet. 38 feet, so we're keeping it to nothing over 38 feet, but there will be an increased amount of trucks on it. But all small ones.
So we'll be transporting the hazardous,
On a
where
7:30.
and under normal situations, they would have been going it on a 6:45 trip, so the hazardous now will be going over on the 7:30 trip in the morning, so 45-minute difference there in terms of the hazardous shipments.
Rob, do you understand what he said?
Yep.
The second trip, the second trip
There
of
was
the Woods
mud.
Hole, the second trip of the Woods Hole is now the gas boat. That you don't have to back up. Technically.
Mhm.
That's what's going on over there. But what's going on over here though, Allison, when Bob brings up the printed schedule, well, yes and no on this route. So hopefully we can all, work together to waive driver services, the fast boat for the 12 o'clock. There's gonna be a lot of confusion, and that's the difference, Rob, with our route. A person can leave a car and go on a different boat to get to Nantucket, and they'll put it on the next boat. It doesn't work that way on your route. That's why this has to happen, to make it as seamless as possible on the Vineyard route versus us. We're just gonna have longer lines, essentially. So,
Got you. Yep,
so that's it.
thanks. Okay, Allison, keep plugging.
All I can do. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
So next up is the treasurer's report.
Morning, everyone.
Hey, Mark.
Well, we get the business summary for the month of April. Oops. Passengers carried on the Vineyard route were down 2.7%. On the Nantucket route, we're down 3.8%, or a total combined for both routes, we're down just under 6,000 passengers at 2.9%. Year to date, though, we're up 12,000 just over 12,000 passengers at 2.2%, with the Vineyard route being up and the Nantucket route being down. Passenger vehicles, and again, as a reminder, these are all one-way traffic statistics. On the Vineyard route, all the categories in the passenger vehicles are down for the month for a total of 10.6%, or just under 4,100 vehicles. Nantucket was down 2.8%, or just under 200 vehicles. Both routes combined were down just under 4,300 vehicles, or 9.4%. Year to date, we're combined down 4.6%, or just over 6,700 vehicles, with the lion's share of the decreases on the Vineyard route, specifically in the standard fare autos and trucks. Freight vehicles for the month, both routes were up 5.3% total, of just under 450 vehicles. Year to date, both routes are virtually flat, up 61 vehicles, or 0.2%. Cars parked, both routes were up combined 333 cars at 3.3%, with the Vineyard route being up and the Nantucket route being down. Year to date, we're up about 16.7% for vehicles parked of 4,100 vehicles. And remember, these are the slowest months for parking. So that's why that number seems a little bit high. Trip summary for the month of April. Mechanical trips, we had 5 on the Vineyard route, 43 for weather cancellations. 4 for crewing. On the Nantucket route, we had 19 for mechanical, 44 for weather, and 4 for crewing. Year-to-date comparison, we are slightly above last year on the mechanicals, but significantly above last year on weather, about threefold what we were last year. And for the month of April last year, we didn't have any weather cancellations compared to this year's 87. So that was a driving factor in the traffic statistics you saw earlier. Financial snapshot. Revenue was down, just over 300,000. Operating expenses were up 360,000. Most of that was timing, bringing the net loss for the month of $832,000, or above budget for the loss, about 437,000. Year to date, we have a net operating loss of 15.6 million, which is 429,000 lower than budget. Waterline revenues, we're looking at the big factors, the standard fare autos and the quantity, and all the autos, as a matter of fact, we're down $443,000 for the month, as well as the year down 860,000 at 13.7%. That's the standout figure on this slide. Operating expenses for the month were up 359,000. General expense for the month was up, and that was some timing issue related to health and welfare and some training expenses. Year to date, fuel expense, we're down 425,000. We budgeted for $3.50 a gallon. Where it came in at $3.16 a gallon. For the month of May, looking at the passengers there, for the first 2 weeks, we're down about 2.2%, or 2,500 passengers for both routes combined. We're still up year to date for passengers. And for the total vehicles carried, for the first 2 weeks of May, we're down 8.4%, or just under 2,300 vehicles for both routes combined. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has regarding the business summary for the month of April.
Any
Mark,
questions from the board council? Yes, Joe.
are you just saying that they're down primarily because of the weather that we've had and the cancellation of those trips?
Well, the standard fare autos and the trucks, as I've been mentioning for the last year roughly, have been trending downwards. But the weather, the 87 trips this year compared to 0 last year for weather, that has to play an impact on it. So would they still be down? I don't know, but they wouldn't be down as much.
Thank you.
Mr.
Other
Chairman,
questions? Yes, go ahead, Nat.
just to follow on that, the problem with that, with Max saying to Joe and back and forth on that, is we don't know if a vehicle has not traveled at all if they couldn't get on the boat they wanted, or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of that's a tough one to figure out. Like, you can't tag that whale and find out where it's going. You know what I mean? Like, for example, when a boat cancels with gas, those gas trucks do not come to Nantucket ever. That one day, like, they're skipped. That revenue is completely gone. But if a food truck doesn't come, or any other truck that has freight, that truck is coming on a different boat at some point, because that freight doesn't just magically go away and go somewhere else like fuel does. Well, a car that originated on Nantucket, that's a Nantucket vehicle, that's coming back to Nantucket somehow. But a car that may be coming here for a vacation, or a one-time event, or some other reason, that may disappear and not come back. So it's complicated what Mark's saying. Passengers is the one that you lose if they don't come over. So
If I may follow up on Nat's point, Nat and I have talked a lot in the past, is that, a lot of the weather was weekend derivative. So then the people say it's going to be a rain out for the whole weekend. I really got to go over and maybe not get back on the day I want to get back because of the weather, what it might be. So I think that's having an impact on the standard fare. We saw the trucks were up compared to the year before. So it looks like most of the impacts were on the weekends.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. But I think if you were driving around here on the streets on the Vineyard, it seems like every car in the world to see. You can't find a parking space after 8 or 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and that's one of Nat's, and I'm quoting Nat now, is that there's more cars in the garages now on the island.
That's true. Oh, no. Yeah.
they're paying excise taxes to your town, Joe, instead of going on the boat. That's how it's working.
Hopefully, if they have them registered here.
They should. It's cheaper.
I know. Well, you're supposed to have, if you're not here for after 30 days.
Thank you, Mark, very much.
Any other questions for Mark? Hey, Mark, just big picture, it seems like we're kind of on track for the budget that we had set for the year. What's your take?
We got the change in the schedule, see how that impacts us. You know, that's gonna be a driver. The fuel costs have come down. Looking at next year's budget, we're hedged about 75–80%, lower than where we were in this year's budget, so that's a good sign. But the concerning factor is the decline in the standard fare autos. I mean, for political, it's, you know, it's less traffic on the island, but on a revenue side, you know, separating the two categories, that you'll see in the next presentation how much more the standard fares pay compared to the excursion fares. And that, you know, one car less on the standard fare is not equal to one less car in excursion as far as revenue goes. So that's the key point right there, looking at that number. On the expense side, with the delay in the website and the vessels coming on, we'll have some less depreciation expense, but that's a paper expense. That's not cash flow. So that'll help the bottom line there. So in the fuel's in a good position. So
Okay.
Murky, how's that?
Yeah, no, I think that is helpful and gives sort of the grander picture. You know, sort of interpreting the numbers a bit, which we do appreciate the numbers too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we do, since you brought it up, why don't we move on to the next item on the agenda?
So I won't go over all 192 pages in the packet. So it really comes down to these four pages here. And we've been doing this for the last 20+ years, and we break down to the dollar really how much each car space costs. So on the Vineyard route in row C, we're looking at the operating costs on the Vineyard route increased by just over $5 million last year. The cost per trip in row E, that's, well, first of all, in row D, we ran 17 less trips in 2023 than 2022. So you divide the trips by the total cost. The cost of each trip is $4,258. That went up $302 compared to last year. We're looking at the number of vehicles carried last year. We're down 7,300 vehicles. That's in section G in the red circle. The number of trucks we carried were up 2,100. And so we're looking at in row K, the total spaces occupied, you know, where semi could be 4 spaces, a car is 1, but we're down 840 spaces compared to the year before. So if we look at our occupancy in number N, letter N, last year we're at 81.8%, this year we're at 81%. And you got to keep in mind, sometimes we have deadhead trips that we're never going to be at 100% capacity. So for instance, the 9:30 p.m. trip off of the Vineyard, no one really wants to go at 9:30 at night, you know, with their vehicle. So that's, you know, that's 1/28 of the trips on a summer day that are 4% that we're not going to fill up. So then when we go to the next slide, we can see that in U, we get to what the average, the cost to be covered by the, for each trip. That's the cost that we need in letter U for each trip to compare. And if you can scroll just up a little bit, Sean. And then you could see in letter P, that's the revenue we make per trip. So the trips are profitable per trip. So then when we scroll down a little bit to sections V through Z, we can see what the estimated cost to carry a car is. It's $76, while the revenue per last year for average standard fare was $100, and the excursion fare for one way when you back out the passengers was $22. So the standard fare cars in the Vineyard route were covering 132% of the cost, while the excursion vehicles were covering just over 30% of the cost. And so on average, the total vehicle, the passenger vehicles were covering 92.6%, while the trucks were covering 106% of their cost per trip. So then on the Nantucket run, our operating expenses were up $2.2 million. Our cost per trip were up $334, which is column E or row E. We did run 53 more trips than last year. And then we look at the average number. So if we look at the total spaces occupied, which is in row K, we had our occupancy was up a little bit last year as far as the total spaces occupied, but our percentage, if you can scroll down to letter N, we were down 0.6% occupancy, a little higher occupancy on the Nantucket run than the Vineyard run. We went from 85.3 to 84.7, down 6%. Again, not all the trips are going to be filled out because sometimes you have directional traffic. Like for instance, on Memorial Day, a lot of people going to the island on Friday versus not a lot coming off on Friday. Total revenue, if we slide down on the Vineyard Nantucket route, was up 2.5 million. That's the last bottom right corner. So we go to the next slide. So then we could see this year the trip average trip for revenue brought in $7,700, and it cost $6,900 to run, which was $280 more per trip to run than last year. So then we can see the cost per trip on the Nantucket route for a car is just over $176. Where a standard fare average last year was $260, and an excursion car was just under $60. And those percentages are similar to what was on the Vineyard route as far as covering the cost of service, with the standard fare covering 147% and the excursion fare covering just under 34%. Cars on the Nantucket route covered 107% of their cost, while the trucks covered 85% of the cost, and that's in the Circle Z. So we use this for looking at next year's budget for trends, where, we have the traffic numbers, but also what's covering what percentage of the cost, and where's the revenue and the direct and indirect costs going to. So that's really what the 192 pages condensed down into these few columns and rows.
Comments and questions from the Port Council? John?
Hey, Mark, nice work. It's really helpful to see that. Thank you. Can you get that information in our packet? Because I don't see it. Or can you email, not the 192 pages, but the 3 or 4 slides you just showed?
We'll put the slides in there separately. So I had that for presentation purposes. It's in the whole package, but I'll email to the group, the Port Council after this meeting.
Thank you.
Cliff note version.
Yeah.
Mark, what's the percentage of what we pay and what the standard fare pays? In other words, we pay 35%, the Steamship Authority picks up 65%. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so last year on the Vineyard route, the standard fare car averaged 132.6% of the cost of service, while the excursion fare auto did 29.4%.
So the steamship is picking up almost 70%.
Other vehicles were picking up, or other revenue sources were covering it. Not the steamship's whole, but the standard fares are helping the excursion fares.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nat.
Hey, so for Gordon, since you're new, this is called the Art Flathers Report. That is what this is. He was a steamship junkie and used to come to the meetings with his little folders and paperwork explaining how Nantucket has too much service and the cost separation between both islands at that time was not set up the way it is now. And this binder that you're going to get dropped at your door somehow from management is going to be the most amazing thing you've ever looked at. It is absolutely brilliant. But I do want to add something, not that I want Mark to work more hours, but I want him to think about something. I can't even remember if I've asked for this before, but it's something that we need to do to add to this, like we do with the excursion, the 37% versus the 140 for a standard car. All right. All we talk about is space on the boats, can't get on, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're working on that. That's an issue, but there's a separate issue regarding reduced rates for sports teams, or group fares, group sales stuff, and trying to get underutilized trips, more vehicles for the island residents. So what I'm asking, Mark, and can't say it the way you would, so I have to do it in my simplistic way of thinking. Having a reduced rate versus displacement of regular paying passengers and cars analysis. So in other words, if we had a total of, and I'm just throwing a number, $30,000, I don't know, maybe it's 100 for sports team tickets for the year. How many people didn't get on the fast boat? Probably none. Probably wasn't at capacity. How many excursion cars, if there were more excursion cars traveling on trips that had tons of space, you're making money. It's not 37%. We've lost the difference between a single car if there's room on the boat. Same with the passengers. And that comes up once in a while with people that don't really fully understand the system that we have and how it's so baked in the last, I'm just going to say, since the fast boat era, from, I like to say the year 2000 is really when it started. It's a little before that, but it's technically 2000. And I think that that's an important thing, Mark, somehow to add into that column about the excursion versus the one-way auto thing, because there's a little bit of a narrative about that is incorrect, but it's hard to explain. When you have 40, 50 kids on a boat that has room for 100 more people, you're making money off those 50 kids because there wouldn't be anybody else there. So
Sounds
thank
like
you.
you're requesting two different things. It sounds like you're requesting two different things, if I may.
Yep.
Is that one is to look at specifically the fast ferry, because we've talked about this, the percentage occupancy when school groups have been on those boats.
Yep.
How many of them have been at capacity or not at capacity?
Right. They're traveling at the opposite of the busy leg of that trip in most cases.
So that's
and it's in the off season as well.
So that's an easier query to do, okay? Because
Yeah.
we can just find out when all the school groups travel, then we already have the occupancy of those trips. So the second one's a lot more complicated about the excursion fares, because you're already at 85% occupancy, which is almost full, even though it's not 100, but you have unusable trips. You know, for
Okay.
instance, on certain days of the week, like Thanksgiving is in a high volume traffic, that's you're not going to get it 100%, you know, because of weather, other things,
Yeah.
you know, people aren't going to travel because I can't get back, et cetera, et cetera. I think that would be more wise to look at the impacts of the Aquinnah and the Barnstable. And
Right.
then, since you're resetting the table, look at
Yep.
what the impacts of the travel patterns are, and then reevaluate what to do as compared to this year. Looking at 2024 is going to be skewed because you have a different schedule.
Yeah, and Mark, thank you for that, because that was part of our conversation way back when we purchasing these boats, was the reset of these boats is going to change a lot of things, because they're going to be on the printed schedule, they're going to be bookable with cars, and I apologize for not throwing that piece in, because that is true, and it is two separate questions. So
I'll tackle the school groups first, if it's okay with the
Yeah.
Port Council, and get back to you guys. And then we'll look at reassessing what you talked about, the excursions, once you get some better data points with the new vessels.
And the Vineyard route, just to add one more point, I don't understand the Vineyard route the way I do Nantucket, obviously. How many trips they're going to have more when these boats are in place? They're going to have more trips that are bookable with automobiles, I believe, than they do currently in the mix of the Katama and the Sankaty trips, correct?
Routes, when the Aquinnah and Barnstable are running in place of the Gayhead, Katama, Sankaty, that draft should be similar to the Woods Hole, so that you shouldn't be having that draft issue that limits the passengers.
Right.
On paper.
Okay, that's good news, gentlemen. I'm just trying to unwrap it a little bit so it's more positive and for everyone, you know, once to get to that day when this actually happens, you know, so.
Yeah, so for instance, that at the Woods Hole, I don't recall it ever going over draft.
Can't. No, thanks. So.
Okay.
Thank you all for this. Sorry to drag it on.
No, that, I think, it's important stuff, and I think, to pile on with what Nat said, Gordon, this is like the Bible. It's,
Yep.
it's worth a hard look. It is you know, it's amazing how much statistics that we have to work with, and here's where it's all put together in one place.
And I gotta give credit to my team. I can't take credit for putting the whole book together. They did most of the hard work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Mark. I had a couple of questions. One is, you mentioned that, you know, this is sort of underpins then your approach to the budget for next year. And you have the different percentages of costs covered by the different types of categories. I mean, do you plan on making some adjustments in those targets, i.e., you know, the standard fare is covering whatever the number was, 135%, and the excursion is 30%, or whatever the number was? Are you trying to, you know, adjust those a little bit in the way you would, you know, propose the way the revenue is associated with it?
Ideal world, there is no rate adjustment, so I'll put that on the table first, but being more realistic about it in the inflationary environment that we're in, there probably will be. But the first thing we do is tackle the expense side and find out what do we need, you know, what our needs are, what things are gonna cost. Then we pivot to the revenue side and look at our traffic patterns, look at the schedule, forecast any changes in that. We, you know, like when with COVID, we had to make assumptions. I'm not expecting any assumptions this year unless something happens. Then we'll look at the revenue side. Then we'll look at this along with the history of rates and then find out how to balance everything out. And then we'll work with the membership from the islands primarily as well as the mainlands, but saying, you know, these are our thoughts. What are your thoughts where the rate adjustment should be? Then we'll present it to the Port Council preliminary, get your feedback. And I know in the past we've gotten feedbacks. What if we do this? Instead of $2, it goes to $1. Then we'll have our board meeting, then we'll have an open house, and then we'll come back. So that'll be the process as a whole. But I think it's too early to say what's going to happen because all of a sudden, July and August, the numbers could change.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Gordon, one other point is the fact that, you know, the number one job of the Port Council is the review of the finances. You know, we opine on everything, but that is the number one job. So that document is really the you know, a source book for helping us do that. I had one other question, Mark, and that was, is built embedded in there someplace the analysis of the application of the overhead between the two islands? And how are we doing there?
The indirect cost allocation is in there. So, you know, for instance, on the reservation department, we look at the number of reservations we make. You know, and allocate the cost that way. So there's different formulas in for each type of allocation, how we indirect the indirect costs. By buyer line. So.
Yeah, I get that. I guess my question was, is the analysis showing you us ending up where we expected, or is it is there a bit of an imbalance now that you've done it, and do you plan on tweaking that?
It swings. Like the big thing on the Vineyard route is the Woods Hole terminal. That's a Vineyard route, you know, depreciation asset. I mean, that Woods Hole terminal. Before you had the administration building, which was a shared resource, but the Woods Hole terminal is strictly a Vineyard asset.
Mm-hmm.
The new boats next year will be where they put on the run. Who's gonna get the depreciation like with the Woods Hole? This year, I believe it was some of the work on the Nantucket and the MV came off. So that, you know, where the boat runs the most, who receives the benefit. But we do look at, we don't build a schedule. We build a schedule based on where the boats are needed.
Right.
And then the allocation falls where it is. But as far as sharing the load of the cost, yes, those are coming in. They're very well balanced compared to 15 years ago where one route, you know, we've had it seen it both ways.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
Any other comments, questions on this topic?
Just a kind of an overview for not just Gordon because he's new, but just what Mark just said. there. Is that, when did this start? 26, 06, 7 area?
This is the 20th version of it, so,
Is it? Oh, okay. Wow, I thought it might have been a little younger than that. All right, well,
Bob's the architect of this.
it is true that that we had too much service. I know that sounds crazy, but we used to have the summer schedule went all the way out to middle of October. And that this process started fine tuning the shoulder season scheduling is what this did. And it gave management some good tools to figure out, okay, what do we need Monday through Friday versus the weekends? And it's really, you know, reset the whole system. And it's just, you don't know these things unless you know these things. It's just one of those, like, you know, kind of going back, you know, to Woods Hole and the Dolly Freight. If you don't know about it, you'd never know what happened. So this is just a great thing. And I just think we need to build from it a little, maybe not be so focused on certain parts and refocus new stuff. And the hedging too, Mark, that's another thing that you might want to, you know, I don't know, need to say anything about it, but that has helped us as well. The hedging program has been really helpful for the steamship because we use all our fuel at the most expensive time of the year. Or
We'll give an
potentially.
update next month if the Port Council wishes on the hedging program or an overview. It's up to you guys.
That's
Yeah.
hedging on fuel purchases, is that what that?
Yes, basically insurance to,
Yeah.
you know, to guard against catastrophic price increases.
Mark, I missed your suggestion that you would give a overview of this process.
Yeah, overview and update of the
Yeah.
hedging program if you would like.
I think that would be good and helpful.
Okay.
So thank you. Okay, why don't we move, Bob?
Robert, if I just may say, so, you know, part of what, the discussion has been is in this, being able to go back and look at, you know, where the revenue is being generated and the mix. But it still does allow each island to make a determination as to how they feel it's best to apply any rates. You know, on the vineyard side, they generally, over the years, have always had the truck space paying slightly more than the cost of that space. And having the cars a little less, and a big piece of that, of course, is the excursions paying that much less. But on the Nantucket route, it's been the exact opposite, that they would put it on the automobile rates, particularly the summer rates for Nantucket, and keep the truck rates low. So it just gives us some flexibility in terms of being able to see, you know, what changes we need to be making if we need to be making changes, so.
Yep. Very good. Okay, why don't we move on to the next agenda item? Which is the general manager annual review. Bob, do you have any comments or anything about this topic before we have a discussion with our Port Council?
Just other is my favorite meeting of the year.
So, good morning, everyone. So all of you, on May 23rd, I had sent out an email to all of you with the link to the Google form, which was embedded in the email, as well as the performance goals and Bob's status update from last year. So I was hopeful that today, although there are some of the goals that you'll see from the last performance year that carried over to this current year. So I was hoping that you'd be able to provide us today with a verbal update on those status, on the status of those goals. And then by June 12th, if you could complete the Google form, that would be appreciated. And if anyone needs assistance with that, I'd be happy to help.
Okay,
So
I'd like to open the conversation. John?
Janice, could you just explain that again, the status of the questions? I'm not certain what you're asking.
Sure,
Thank you.
so the performance evaluation that was embedded in the Google form, those are the goals and objectives from last year. Some of those goals carried over to this current performance year. So any of those open goals, if you could please provide an update. As you'll see in the goals and objectives that were in that document.
An update, you mean where I'm
They
at
open-
with it or where we're at with it? What do you mean by an update?
Individually, typically how this is done is that individually, each of the members provides their update individually, just as we did last year.
All right, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I ask another question? Thank you. How does one not have a performance objectives at the beginning of their year? How come we don't have that done?
Those are typically established by the board of directors, so that's something that we've talked about, but a lot, like I said, some of the goals that were in last performance year carried over through this current year.
Then are there other senior managers that don't have goals and objectives for this year?
The goals and objectives, so last year, my review was put off until the fall. And at that point, there was still of the, 13 or 14 goals that were there. A number of them are ongoing projects and the like, so there was no formal vote as to what the next set of goals should be, or whether, so I was going on the basis of, the continuation of those goals. Particularly the ones that, dealt with, ongoing projects.
I don't know where the responsibility falls, but I would think as general manager, you'd want to take the initiative and have those things updated every year, because it drives what you do. And I'd just be curious, in answer to my question, does the other senior managers also have updated goals and objectives?
So typically the goals of the general manager also end up being the goals of the staff, because, they're involved in the different aspects of where we're going, whether it's, the vessel conversions or the website or, grant opportunities and things like that.
So Mark Rosam's objectives are the same as Mark, who's building the ships down in Louisiana? They're this,
His focus would be regarding the financials or
right,
applications and things like that.
So I would walk away with this conversation that they have not been updated year after year.
Not this past year.
Thank you.
Joe?
I have the same problem. I know last year I had a problem doing this because we didn't get these goals and updates, I think, till sometime the end of July or the beginning of August. And I know I can't speak for John or even for Nat over in Nantucket, but this is very, very busy time of the year for us. And going over these are the same questions that we were filling out last year that we're doing this year. And probably 4 or 5 of them have already been completed. Shouldn't we have gotten a new form with just those questions or evaluations to do, instead of maybe having 14? It should have been maybe 10 or 6. And I know I got this on Friday when I checked my emails. I think it was on the 23rd, and I had called Janice and wanted to talk to her about this, but she was away for a couple of days, and I believe I called you on the 30th of May. And I'm having the same problem that John does. At this point in time, I don't know really how to fill out this form. We've answered most of these questions.
Like I said, the outstanding goals and objectives is the focus for this particular year.
Could you send out just those?
It's in your email, Joe.
It is. I have them, but I mean, there's 14 of them. I have to go through and figure out which ones I answered last year that I don't have to answer this year.
I can do
Not
that,
that
Joe.
it's a big problem, but
Yep, I can do that.
I mean, that would be appreciated if we just got 6 questions.
Nat, what's
I see this. This is why kind of finding an old school way to evaluate someone is kind of better than the fancy stuff, because the goals aren't. It's not like mowing your lawn, and you mowed your lawn, and then we check that off the list. I mean, it's the things continue through each year, except for a few. They're not finish for, I mean, we approved the Woods Hole project, what, 2015? I mean, there's always gonna be questions in the goal, not questions, but a status update each year of the latest portions of that project, for example.
So
The
ask those
boats,
questions.
I
Ask
mean,
those
I
particular
know,
questions.
Joe, and I'm not saying anything. I've been through this stuff for a long time
I
with
know.
my other positions over here. And
I have
I've
too.
said this about the stuff we have to do for planning, and it's like, I'd just rather talk about it than all this stuff, because it's kind of it doesn't work perfectly. We're a working company that has to perform certain things for both islands. And when we get into all this corporate-y fluffy stuff, it gets confusing, and you do feel a little out of place filling the stuff out. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But you know, that I've always tried to give, when this stuff started, it isn't that long ago this stuff started. We didn't do this way until, I don't know, towards the end of Wayne's time, I think, maybe. But I think there could be a better way to do the goals and objective update. Maybe, Janice, you know, there is a better way to do it, I'm sure, more improved way. But overall, there's always going to be, I mean, you could talk about the buses, and you could break up the electric ones versus this one and versus that. I mean, there's always something that's sort of lagging, not quite done. Part of it's done. It's grant funding, it's timing, there's always something. So I look at it holistically. That's what I like to do. And then single out a handful of things that are more, in my opinion, more important to focus on. So I'll leave it at that for now until I
John, I
give
saw
my-
your hand up, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask Gordon if he has anything before I come back to you, John. Gordon, do you have anything you want to?
Yes, since we've established me as the new guy for a bit, I'm curious how our performance review either coincides, aligns with the board of directors and the representatives from our different communities on the board of directors. Do we, and this is purely a question because I'm new, would I have a conversation with Moira to get her sense about what the entire year performance had been, or should there be some sort of distance between our analysis versus the actual board's analysis?
So I would say in the recent past, we've done our evaluations according to the same process that the Board of Governors has done their evaluations, and they've all gone into, you know, a pot.
Okay.
So in other words, more or less independent, but that's not to say that you aren't entitled to speak to Maura if that's what you want to speak to about a particular thing that you're interested in getting her opinion on. But it's basically, we've done the same thing, both groups.
Okay, right. Yeah, no, if there's some sort of historical in the last 12 months sense context that I might, get her perspective on, I might do that on a question or two, but.
And maybe for one other, just edification, we have had a form in recent years that we filled out that ended up with sort of a numeric outcome, which you then could modulate based on your broader view of performance.
Yep.
So there was a numeric aspect, and then there was a subjective aspect, but it was a thing that you filled out that was nominally objective, nominally answering a bunch of questions. And the other piece of it was when we had a list of objectives, of goals that were Bob's performance was measured against, we also got an assessment of how those goals were achieved during that period from Bob. In other words, he would provide us input. So because we don't know all the details about every and I'm a strong believer we need that information for us to make an informed evaluation. So that's how it has been. This year seems to have a different sort of strategy to it, or a different approach to it, or I guess that's something to be determined.
Yeah, and I'm with Nat that, that some of this stuff doesn't fit perfectly, particularly for an organization as complex as this one, where a lot of the analysis might be sort of incident response or, something that wasn't in the goals and objectives that needed to be addressed by leadership, right? And
Yeah. That's where the subjective part would come in.
yeah, exactly, right?
sure.
So you've got to interpret that. So, but I am a believer in the processes generally, right? And so I think doing the best we can with this, and all these questions are new to me, Joe, right? So I'll probably look at them and respond to all of them, even though you all may have trod that ground already.
Right,
So.
Joe, before I come to you, John, you had your hand up before. Did you want to add something?
Well, thank you. My question goes back to Janice, and Janice, I apologize if I'm putting you on the hot seat, but I'm just curious, how many individuals within the Steamship Authority actually have a formal performance review?
The non-union members have formal performance
Non-union.
evaluation. I'm sorry?
Either union or non-union, you can decide.
Yes, the majority of us have performance evaluations.
It just pertains to the non-union group.
The non- yeah,
So there's about 80 to 90 individuals.
Mhm.
Yep. So that's in place. And how many get updated every year?
They all
would be
they all get
updated
a
based on the,
review
yep,
on
Yep.
an annual basis, yeah.
and their performance based on those, correct, every year.
I might be off to a degree or two, but it sounds like we're not updating senior management's objectives every year.
Joe?
So that's a question for Dennis.
Okay.
The problem that I have is that I think even last year I had waited because we didn't get the general manager's goals and status. That's something that should be prepared for July 1st of each fiscal year. And we get the report sometime in June of what his goals were and what he accomplished. And that helps us filling out these forms. I know we're just looking at two questions here. One talks about the SQMS for December 31st, 2022. It really has nothing to do with this year. Another one talks about the overseeing the development and administration of staff, including the hiring of the COO and the person for administrative grants. That has nothing to do with it this year. And I agree with Matt in some ways. Instead of filling out these forms, it would be better if we had a meeting in person with Bob to discuss, once he's given us his goals and what he has done, to sit down and discuss with him how we think that he's really done what he was supposed to do, or how we feel that maybe something else should have been done. These written reports, it's very difficult to put, a round peg in a square, or a square peg in a round hole.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask through you to Janice or Bob or whoever knows, number 13 on your goals and objectives, Janice.
Mm-hmm.
It says provide quarterly updates to the Port Council and board on the progress of the above goals. Is that new? Because that's kind of what the other members are saying. Is that
These
a new
goal? These were the goals that were approved by the board last year.
Okay, so that's a new, okay, so that's kind of what they others are saying in a sense. Because I mean, you read the stuff. I mean, Joe, when you read all this, like I did now for my second time, and it's like the obstacles that come up that are unpredictable and unintended or whatever, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's just permitting and compliance stuff today is more than the job would have been 40 years ago. Like, it's insanity. So I just cringe at this stuff, not in any particular direction, it's just the system is this way now. Everything is really complicated, and it's unfortunate. I mean, those 2 rocks getting put back on the jetty in Hyannis took 7 years. Put 2 rocks back. You see, like it's just, and it wasn't free. It's crazy. So, you know, I look at this as a tool that's necessary for whatever reason that is. I don't even know what that is, but I guarantee you that this process is what other places do for whether it's municipal, high-level employees. We have it for all of the employees over here. There's a process for this, for directors of, you know, whether it's planning, whether it's the town manager, whether it's the DPW director, it doesn't matter. There's stuff in place for that. And some of those processes probably are eye-rolling and redundant and really not the meat and potatoes of what this person's actually doing every day. And that's where I come from. I cannot stand the complicated stuff. I have to deal with it in my job. It drives me completely nuts. And the only way to get things done is to go to work. And it's hard to go to work now. So for anybody today. So I look at holistically, see all these confusing things that are necessary, but then trying to find a way to actually perform day to day is hard. And that's what I think the most important leadership of management is today, is to find a way to continue to operate as if it was the 90s in the 21st century. That's the truth. That's what the public wants, Joe. They just don't know that, but that's what they want. Trust me.
Yeah, John, I think, thanks, Nat. I think I'm going to weigh in for a second, then I think with this year, for whatever reason, the process is flawed. I'm not exactly sure how to put my finger on what the source of the problem is. This is a sophisticated organization. It's complicated. I mentioned earlier that the job of the Port Council, the number one job is the finances. The number one job of the Board of Governors is the choice of the general manager, and making sure the general manager has got the tools and is the right person and all of those things. And the only way you can really make that assessment is by having an evaluation process, whatever that may be. And Nat, to your point, maybe, having too many goals that are down in the noise level isn't the best process, but, it is a process, whether or not it's the right process. I guess, I just feel like we're not in a position to do a reasonable evaluation based on the information that we were provided. I think that is, last year's news, not this year's news. I think it's possible to do an evaluation this year based on something. I haven't, I don't know exactly what that is. We're not the experts on that, and maybe Janice, you are, or there's places to get it. But I think we need to, I would suggest postponing doing any action now based on the information we have, and that we recommend to the Board of Governors at their next meeting that they insist on a process that we can all then use to have an evaluation that provides some metric, whatever that may be. Nat, I may have been the source of item 13, looking for reasonable updates, so that we can kind of keep this as a front and center thing, whatever that may be. But I don't think what we have now is something that, I put not applicable in every box and just submitted it that way, because I don't feel like there was anything there that to measure, because it's last year's news, not this year's news.
That's basically what I was saying.
Yeah, and that fits into what I'm saying about these projects are not like, shingle in your roof and it's finished. They're continuous. They're ongoing. They're in phases. Even our terminal, gallows replacement has gone further than it was supposed to, for reasons that are not anyone's fault. It's just the process to get them done, and they have to be done in the winter.
Yeah,
can't just show up here with a barge in July. You know what I mean? So it's very, everything is just a little bit more complicated today for whatever reason. It just is.
Going
So-
along with that, Nat, if it's only been halfway completed, then in the goals and then on his goals, he would say, I've done it this far, and this is
Yeah.
the reason why it's not finished. And we don't have that before us. And I
Yeah.
agree with Rob. I mean, we just don't have what we need to do a proper evaluation. And I think that's basically what most of us are saying.
John?
Rob, thank you for saying what you said, because I think you said it much more
Yes.
clearer than all of us, and appreciate that. I did hear that, and I'm not certain of this, but when Janice mentioned that the board voted against establishing goals, that's a shocker. And just further looking at this is that it was the governor from Nantucket and the governor from Hyannis who voted against having a performance review. So I'd like to really, find out at the next Board of Governors meeting why they did.
I don't recall saying that. I'm sorry.
You didn't.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear.
No.
But I
I
do
see.
appreciate the feedback, and I agree with you that having a conversation is an intricate part of this evaluation process. So I understand your position with regard to having one opportunity to meet and discuss the performance of the general manager. So I'd be open to certainly updating this process, getting feedback not only from you, but the board of directors as well to improve the process, open lines of communication more frequently. And I think that would help the process.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Yeah.
Rob.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, Bob, nice to see you. I didn't realize you were in the room there.
I was hiding in the back seat. Good to see all you guys. This is obviously an important subject, but I would encourage you to move forward on this evaluation the way you see it. The reason that no further goals were talked about is because we were pretty much just halfway through the goals of last year. Nothing was really complete. We haven't done the strategic plan. We haven't finished up on the website, the lights, the stuff overhangs at Thomas B. Lang landing is put on hold because the electric companies, they don't want to get that into the grid yet. All of these projects are very costly, very timely, and there was hardly anything, including the ships coming in and the evaluation of the ships. All of those things that are on that list weren't done. So we can only evaluate as to where we are today. And once they're done, we can draw a line and say that. But I know this is on the agenda for the next meeting for the board, and that's coming up in a few weeks. And we will be taking that, and we'll also be talking about the general manager's contract and a few other things. And so this is a timely type of thing. So I would emphasize, if you can talk to Janice and if you need help doing it. I've read it over a couple of times, and most everything is still in abeyance. Mainly because we really took on a whole lot more than maybe we should have. But process is being made, and we've got to come to some sort of conclusions. I don't know if that makes sense or not to you, but I would encourage you to do that. And I understand your questions. I've had questions myself all along. This is a confusing process. It was initially brought into print and writing by Bob O'Brien, who was from Barnstable. Then we changed some of the verbiage and et cetera, and it got a little more confusing. But the Port Council, is very important to this organization. And the board looks heavily on, where you are. And for sure, this discussion will be brought forward at our next meeting, which is
I don't know, maybe in 3 weeks or something like that. So I don't know if that's a help or more confusing to you, but I would hope that you would move forward so that we can have something to look at. And there will be a lot of discussion the next meeting also.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate your input. Any other input from others on the Port Council?
If I may, Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
I can see there's a hesitancy regarding this, and this was kind of a different type of year in which there was no formal, vote as to what goals were going, and I took it upon myself that, because the number of goals that had been established the year before, that they're still in progress, that, we were working off those, but I don't know whether it'd be helpful to suggest that, I update, remove the items from this list from before that had been completed, a year ago, and then provide a quick update as to what the status of those other ones are, whether those have been completed at this point or whether they're still in progress. And I don't know whether this is directed to Mr. Jones, whether the board then would want to have at the June meeting, a time for the Port Council to join, just to provide during the discussion of my review, to provide the review at that point. I don't know whether that would be helpful or not.
Port Council's always welcome to participate, like I'm stepping out of these chairs here now. Your input is very valuable. My only, I read over those, I guess, Nat, you have too, the things that Janice sent out, and most all of those just have not been completed yet. And the speed that is completed, sometimes, the terminal isn't completed yet, the building isn't completed yet. Nothing is really completed. It's work in progress. So we've got to evaluate perhaps the work in progress and not worry about whether or not it's finished or not, or that could go into it. So that's yes.
No, I agree with what Bob had just said, that maybe we need what has been completed and what we've already done from last year, and just what is in progress now and how that progress is going. And I think that's all we're asking. I think that's just what Bob said when he goes before the governor's meeting at the end of this month.
That would be helpful.
I mean, I'm sitting here, I can't judge until I see what
Exactly
what might be presented and to replace what was there. I think, I mean, at least from my own perspective, I'm open-minded to reviewing it. But I also think that it is important, the message from the Port Council, or at least, in my sense of it, and I don't want to speak and put words in people's mouths, is that we don't have a process right now that is adequate, or that is one that really is that meaningful. And that's our main message, that we need a process that is more meaningful, that we can really make a better assessment and contribute in the way that we should be. I'm not sure if we, for example, like I think the intent was, we go around the room today and we opine on Bob's performance. I'm just not comfortable doing that with no structure myself. So I would abstain from that.
Now remember that the Port Council has the opportunity of responding individually or collectively. And I think in the past few years, it's been collectively.
Right.
And you present a collective report to the board.
I
But
recall last year going around the room and everybody had an evaluation and everybody came up with a score, and everybody, sort of argued as to why they came up with that score. And it was at least a measure you know, you could, and so I think everybody had an individual opportunity to speak based on their evaluation, and their evaluation was based on some reasonably objective criteria. And we don't have that now.
You're absolutely right, Rob, and that's not gonna change. But the fact of the matter is, you do have a choice. And I think it's been activated before in years past, but it doesn't matter. The Port Council will dictate how they want to handle it.
And I think Bob is correct. We need a criteria, we need a basis, and we don't have that.
Well, I'm not trying to argue in favor or not. I understand, I hear you very well, except for the fact that the board did approve, and I think the Port Council did approve the fact to move forward without board's recommendations. And I don't know if we have to go back in the minutes or whatever, but I know it was discussed.
What's the
So
pleasure of the Port Council here? I think we all have a sense of where we're at. What's the pleasure of the Port Council?
Okay, and I think I hear it.
John?
We just ought to postpone and try to see how things go in the next week or two, and reassemble and try to see if we can reconstruct some sort of evaluation now that we have more knowledge as to what happened in the weeks ahead. There's no sense of urgency that I'm aware of that we need to do this today.
That'll be brought forward. I don't know. I mean, things are scheduled. Question other things, so that's the way the agenda's been moving forward, but I personally have no problem at all to put it off.
You're saying, Bob Jones,
Yes.
that you want to put off your meeting in 3 weeks to July.
Oh.
Is that what you're saying?
No, we've got to have our meeting in 3 weeks.
I don't mean your meeting. I mean this item, sorry.
If that's, you know, if that's the wishes of the Port Council, I think the board
what it
would
sounds
probably
like.
go along that. I can't
Bob,
guarantee.
last year, we put this off till September, Rob, if I recall correctly, because I know for some of us, it's a very busy time of the year.
Yeah, but
Well, the only reason that we're moving forward, because this is kind of the end of Bob's contract year.
yeah. Yeah.
And with that, you know, the board wants to have, you know, this evaluation done.
Yeah.
But we can, if that's the wishes of the Port Council that we put it off, I will bring that to the board, and I don't think there'll be a problem with approval, but I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna try to find the middle ground purple state answer to this. Suggestion. I don't know if this is possible, Janice. Is there a way to take 1 through 12 and have like a little synopsis at the end that everyone can see? Okay, this project is, you know, say ongoing, 50%, first phase, second phase, you know, whatever that is. Like I can do that myself almost with what the information is, but not everything. Like
But
I
I
can
think
do it
that's
with
what Bob was saying. He would provide some updates, and we could certainly make that a
something that
collective.
can be resent to the members.
Mhm.
I don't know about waiting until September, Joe. I don't know if
Okay.
that's the right thing to do, but if there was a better analysis, like your boat replacement, the boat replacement thing is something I wanted to talk about today, but I'm not going to do that now. I could give that story because that's one of the best things that's come out of this management team behind the scenes, that they've come up with a really good, solid plan for the future of the boat line for both islands. And that is hard to put on paper, Janice. You know what I mean? Like you almost have to talk individually with Bob and Mark and whoever, everybody, you know, to figure that out. But at the same time, the professionalism of this process, you got to satisfy all the members, and that's my thought, is to have some kind of analysis for each of the 12 goals, because I think 13 is sort of happening by itself, so that's really not an evaluation, but look, the status and a simple cliff note answer to each one. And then do it for July or August or whatever the next, you know, it should be on the agenda again or whatever we should do.
Rob,
June's my
one last thought. I think Bob came up with the idea that he would give us what he's accomplished in certain goals in a précis or in a brief statement.
Okay.
John,
Any way to make
Gordon,
any
any
way to
other
make it
thoughts?
simple.
I guess, I know how busy everybody is, so we could just stay on schedule and do this with the information Bob's going to provide at our July Port Council meeting, and then perhaps some combination of us joins the board meeting in July to do the presentation or the sort of assessment from the Port Council to the board. Alternately, we schedule a special meeting sometime between now and the June board meeting. But I don't, I don't know what everybody's schedules are and the ability to do the assessment and then have a meeting prior to June. But I think if we do that, we can actually convey our message to the board by July and not have to wait until September or something like that. That seems like a doable timeframe.
Okay, John?
It sounds like to me that we're going to create goals and objectives at the end of this year, which should have been created at the beginning of the year, right? That's the way it's starting to sound to me, which adds a little bit more humor to this whole topic. I just don't understand, and I just want to be on record how senior management can go the entire year, and I understand the board was involved, without having clear-cut objectives for how they're going to spend their time running this $120 million organization. It's disturbing to me. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I guess I would add to that point that if there was going to be a redo of that list of 13 and it turned out that maybe the numbers 9 are still ongoing, the only way they mean anything is not just to have a status, but to have a status against what the plan was.
Right.
And the plan, of course, is the goals that John was talking about. You have a set of goals. When were the ships going to be delivered, and when are they going to be delivered? And how do you measure that? So that's what would need to be in this new revised list to me to make it useful. Because otherwise, just a status report is not really. There's no measure against anything then.
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with that. Is the amount of obstacles that are, I don't care who's in charge, Barry Fuller could still be here and the same thing would have happened. And that's what I'm getting at with all this. I'm not,
Matt, this isn't a positive or a negative. This is just a measure.
I understand, but again, Rob, the way things work with procurement and projects that are not just like a simple dry dock. Okay, we could have a dry dock report, and that would be wicked easy. When Mark A puts his thing up there and it shows the propellers and the shafts getting cleaned up and put back in and all that, that's like awesome. But that's 1 month or 3 weeks in shipyard with a list, bing, 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 zip and bang, and then you have your change order thing and it's all set, like really like simple, like an Amazon dry dock. But the other stuff that we're looking at is these are large, complex processes that just don't happen in a year, let alone 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm not trying to go against what you guys are saying. I'm just trying to like reset our mindsets a little bit about what our expectations are. I don't want to make a gotcha out of this. I can tell you that. There's enough of that going on over here with local politics. We're trying to put ourselves out of business in Nantucket. If you really want to know.
I'm not hearing.
I don't want to do that to the steamship.
I'm not hearing that as a goal of this group at all. I'm
Okay.
hearing wanting to have just reasonable things so that we can have a basis for which to make an evaluation. Right now, there's just no basis.
Well, then the process is too complicated for us then, if that's the case.
I would argue there wasn't a process this year, and we're now suffering the consequences of that, rather than it being too complicated. Hey, Bob Jones, just a question for you. What is the timing? I know that you guys want to pick this up at your June meeting. When do decisions need to be made? I mean, I guess I'm sensitive to the fact that, there's some timing issues associated with this topic. I want to be sure I'm clear on that. Can you tell me what that is?
Only that the board has requested that we have this evaluation done in time for our next meeting. And that's where I'm going from there. Whether it goes into September or whatever, I don't necessarily think it'll be a problem. But
When you say next meeting, you mean June?
June.
This meeting
Yep.
in June. Okay. I mean, I think there's, I'm just talking out loud.
It's the
I think
request
I'm
I'm
sorry?
sorry. I said that's the request I've had from the board.
Okay. I mean, I think it's possible, given subject to whatever Janice and Bob can come up with, that we could do the online evaluation process if we had revised new information that was reflective of the things that we've just talked about. That could be done before the June meeting. I don't think that the Port Council can regather and have our normal around the horn discussion the way we would have done today had we had all of that before then. So, I think there's the potential for some input, but not the normal input. And so I would say that's not great. And I'm certainly not inclined to try to call a special meeting in order to do that. I think it'll be tight enough as is, just to give you the time to revise the goals and objectives report, and for us to do a redo of the online evaluation. And I'm certainly happy to plan to attend as a representative of the Port Council to kind of summarize this conversation. But I don't think we would have had our normal process done in its totality by the June meeting. I'm just, I don't know, other thoughts along those lines. I think we could do the online version, assuming there's something that is really to interpret. I mean, I felt like totally uncomfortable doing anything but saying not applicable for the list that we got on Friday. And even, and I'll just, opine a little further, even if it had been all perfect and having gotten it just last week, I'm not sure we would have been ready for today to have the normal good conversation that we would normally have, because typically we've had more like a month to really be ready for this process.
Your point's well taken, Rob, but I will say, if you read Janice's write-up and what is done in the position we're in today, that you find most everything stems back to last year. I mean, the boats aren't here, as we've said, and that was predicted, months ago, was supposed to be in here. Mark today told us, that supply chains and things are impossible. You can add up, all of those different projects, and they're still ongoing. Whether they should be or not, it is your call, but in any event.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think we all understand that.
Okay.
So
now, Rob, what is your wishes that I take back to the board?
Well, I want to be sure that I've got, consensus with our group here as to the steps. And I think what's on the table is to give management time to get back to us with a revised a set of assessments based on that list, with knowing that we would like to see both what was the general plan and what is the achievement against that plan, just at a very high level. And then we can consider revisiting that evaluation, that online evaluation. I think that's about the best we can do before the Board of Governors meeting late in June. And that is that's an imperfect contribution. But I also would, plan to attend on behalf of this group and try to summarize this conversation for the Board of Governors so that they understand the context in which they got whatever that information was.
Right. So I will say to the board.
But Bob, before you can, I just want to make sure that what I stated, everybody's in general consensus for as an approach.
Yes.
I would agree with you, Rob, on that. I think you're saying it much more succinctly than I have.
Nat,
Yes.
you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's fine.
Okay. Gordon, okay.
Thank you. That'll go forward. Now, I don't know where you are in the agenda, Rob, but I intend to discuss something much more palatable.
I think we're getting close to near the end of the agenda.
Well, that's good. If I may, can I continue to say a few words?
Sure. I just want to so I think we're done on this topic, Port Council colleagues. Okay. All right, Bob, over to you. And I'm going to suggest that you keep it.
John's got his hand up, Rob.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of things.
Hey, Bob, just before you start, I'm going to suggest you keep this succinct because we're 2 hours in and I'm respectful of everybody's time. So if you can have your input, but let's try to keep this to say, I don't know what everybody's timing is, but 10 or 15 minutes. I think we got to have a plan here.
Well, just because I got a microphone in front of me doesn't mean I'm going to be long. So one of the things, one comment, Nat and Art Flathers, if we could capture, all his notes, we would have a book.
Yep.
That gentleman, he wrote like a typewriter and he recorded everything. But I'll leave it at that. That's from days gone by. But the other thing is we talked about a workshop, and I just wanted to give you an update like that. I haven't forgotten it. It's just that we went out and asked when the prime time is for everybody to join this, and we couldn't get a match anywhere. And so I'm going to reboot the whole thing, and we'll send out an email that'll basically say, given some dates, I cannot absolutely be there on that particular date. What you can't do, I will have a place for myself and say, I will be there any day that you people want. And I'm hoping others will follow suit. But this is kind of like a little bit like herding cats. And I asked the board if they were still in favor of doing that, and it was still those present was a unanimous yes. They're interested in this workshop. So we're going to get that out to you, give you some dates. And if this doesn't work, we can't find a suitable match, I'll go to Plan B, but I'm not going to give you Plan B until I exhaust Plan A. So basically, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Bob. I think obviously everybody here is very, very interested and supportive of our Steamship Authority. And if this can contribute in a constructive way, we're all in on that. I think it would be helpful for us to have a feel for the goals and objectives of that day, of that period of time, so that we can really be thinking about how we would prepare for it. But I think otherwise we're prepared to support this. Just need to have a kind of a clear set of goals.
Will do.
Okay. John had his hand up before Bob talked, Rob, so just checking.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Nat.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're at the point of public comment.
Do we skip over old and new business? Not that I want to make the meeting go longer. I'm just asking. Not, I've said enough
Well, I guess
today.
we didn't skip over it. The general manager review was the only topic in there.
Oh,
There are other
okay.
topics under old and new business that anybody would like to bring up.
No,
Just that I like your beard. I like your beard.
I just want to make like a little bit of a statement, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead,
Rob.
please.
So, you know, with everything that's gone on this recent months, I just want to say, I hope, and speaking for Rob as well, we encourage and want so badly for all the negotiations that are going on to work out in the best interest of the authority for the islands and for the crew members. And we need the boats to run. This is not 1984. This is 2024. The system that we have in place for the Nantucket route has organically changed so much in the last 24 years, since the year 2000, when the fast boats really got going, and sports teams and all these different things that happen here now that never happened. And as somebody that's been around a long time, hate to say how long, but I used to be the youngest member on this group. Bob remembers that. Maybe I still am. I don't know. But anyway, it's very difficult for any of us to talk to people that are 10, 15 years younger than we are about things that go wrong. I have never had that happen before until the last, to the level that it is now. There are no answers to give, and it's hard to do. I do the best I can with it, and that's why I support things that actually are worse for Nantucket in the case of the Sankaty, because I know that it's the right thing. When we have to raise rates on things that I actually am involved in my real job, that's part of being, honest and truthful about everything, regardless of whether it has any effect on locals or what it is. It doesn't matter. That you have to be truthful. And we are in a position now where we're like a bridge that isn't a bridge, but it's such a baked in system that it just, there isn't the room for alterations like there would have been 40 years ago. So I just want to say, wish everyone the most positive outcome and thank them for their diligence, and hopefully things work out over the next month or two. Thank you.
Thanks, Nat. Appreciate that. And I really appreciate all of the Port Council's diligent and hard work and support of the steamship, and we appreciate the work that the authority does, obviously. That's why we're here. Any other old business or new business? Hearing none, any public comment? Sean, over to you.
There's someone in the room. You can step forward, please. Sorry. Didn't finish that.
Hello. My name's Scott Matoyne. I'm a captain at the steamship. Yesterday there was a Nantucket Current article, and one of the Board of Governors stated that a captain or pilot, well, the quote is, "Someone will call out sick at the last minute, knowing there's not time to find someone to stick to their spot, so the boat gets canceled." Do you feel that the captains and pilots are calling out sick last minute to purposely cancel the boats? Is there any evidence of that?
You want me to answer that?
I don't know. I guess it's a general question.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think, you know, in terms of this is, you know, whether this is negotiations or whatever, we deal with negotiations at the negotiation table, not in the public, so.
I understand that, but this is talking about, I'm trying to support my captains and pilots. And this statement from a board of governors saying that we don't do our job and saying that we purposely ruin the service to the islands. So this isn't a negotiation thing. This is you guys, not you guys. This is a board of governor making a statement that I would like to support my captains and pilots with.
Rob has always been on record as supporting the workforce of you know, the entire authority. And I don't have the comments that were attributed to him in front of me, so at this point, I won't comment on.
Okay. And then another quote in here that Mr. Randy said was, there are good numbers of captains and pilots who are older and approaching retirement age. And it's the newer hires that are new to the process who are driving some of the demands. I know that the union members were voted in by their peers. None of the union members were forced to do this. It was a voting process. I know the union members had a survey, and we are fighting for what all the union members want. We are taking what our peers have discussed, what are the biggest issues at this company. So to pin this on the young captains and pilots, I don't think is very fair. I think it's your goal to get young people in here, and specifically from Mass Maritime or Hawes Piping. I think for a board of governor to call out the young people as being the issue, I don't think is very fair to us. And I think it should be your goal to get Mass Maritime professionals in here. But if the generation has changed, and with every generation, there's different fights. Maybe the new generation has a different fight than what you guys all went through in the workforce. But maybe it's time to start listening and just know that it's just not the young captains and pilots. The guys who have been here for 30 years have expressed the same issues with this company. But I was surprised by the Nantucket Current and surprised that the board of governor would blame the young people here. And that's after my comments.
Captain Matone, I have one thing to say is that the
Yeah.
chief operating officer here and all operations report into me and you report into me. You know, I've been in the Merchant Marines since 1992 when I graduated from Maine Maritime. Don't forget Maine Maritime, by the way. And in ship operations for 2 decades. I'm very proud of the people that we have working here. I don't believe that this is an intentional sick out. I believe that with 240 people in our license through our crews, that life happens. There's sickness, babies, death, family emergencies. So I know things happen. I don't think this is intentional. I appreciate what all of our crews and our shoreside people, all of our operations people do on a daily basis here. You know, so I just want to personally say, you know, there's an appreciation here for what's done. And I think that there is the utmost professionalism of our crews. I'm proud to be a leader here with you guys. I'm very happy that we have these relationships with our crews and want to strengthen them and support you and move forward and to actually make this a place where young merchant mariners, young professionals want to come and start and finish their careers.
I appreciate that. And those are, like Mr. Higgins says, those are the comments that crews appreciate. I woke up to 90 text messages yesterday after this article was reported. And 90 people were pissed off. And it just lit a fire under captains and pilots who already feel underappreciated here. So comments like that, they're little things that we listen to and we feel appreciated. So thank you, Mr. Higgins, for that comment.
You're welcome.
Comments from the Port Council.
Yeah, can I just follow up on what the gentleman said?
Yes, please
for a
do,
second?
Matt.
Okay, so, sir, with all due respect, I certainly respect you, respect everyone. So does Rob. But I want to just give you just a teensy little bit of something to think about in regards to the traveling public. Okay. So in today's world with social media, instantaneous flashes of the boat's canceled flashes into everyone's phone literally 10 minutes after it happens on a Sunday morning, and it's canceled all day. And when someone says, for one person, it's hard to explain that in a rational manner to the people affected at that particular day. Let's just say everyone's got each other's phone numbers. This is a tiny little fish tank over here in the sense of communication. Now, I want to say that the staffing issue, like we talked earlier about the schedules, that's a legitimate reality. And when I found out what we had to do with the Sankaty versus the Woods Hole, it was like sticking my finger in a light socket, but it was the right thing for both islands. However, when people over time, just in general over the last whatever decades, when crew members fill in for other crew members and the boat keeps running, nobody knows that happened. Crews that move boats, when there's a breakdown and they got to run a boat to Fairhaven from Hyannis and the other boat's got to come and they put the cruise cars on, all these little things that happen to make things function happen behind the scenes without media coverage. Nobody knows how this stuff happens. It just happens because people are doing their job, and they're doing a great job with communicating. But this situation that we're in right now is different than all the others. It's not weather, it's not a mechanical, and it's hard to explain. And for us over here as representatives and people that live here and have to go to Stop and Shop and everyone's got our phone numbers and email addresses, you literally don't have an answer. So I hope that you guys get what you deserve. I hope it's fair. But what I said earlier, it's not 1984, it's 2024, and it's hard to explain an unintended cancellation or an unexpected cancellation when so many people are affected by it. And that's where this stuff is coming from. I certainly personally don't want you to take offense of anything that I've said, anything that Rob said. We want everything to work. We want to move forward in a new reset era, I'll call it. But bottom line is, we have an incredible dynamic system of boats over here. And in other than unforeseen circumstances, we need this to work reasonably well. And that's all I'm saying. And I hope everything works out for all of us.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
John, over to you.
Yes, first off is thank you for coming forward, and I also thank you for your courage.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. My comment, Nathaniel, I think you said it's hard to explain to the press. Maybe it's, instead of writing or saying comments like, oh, we think that captains and pilots are calling out sick last minute to disrupt the service, I think it's better just to say, I don't have an answer for you. I know you're expected to give an answer to the public, and it's a tough position you are in. But I felt like the words were meant to make captains and pilots feel they are disrupting service on purpose, and I don't think that was fair to us. But I know you're in a tough position, so thank you for explaining yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate John's comment about appreciating you coming forward. I think one of the things that is always an issue is communication. and you've just communicated, and I think that's really appreciated by everybody here. I think, Bob Jones, we're looking for a topic for the workshop. I think this question of the generational aspects that we have in our crewing is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that has come out in this conversation as an important thing to be contemplating. And so I think, in addition to your main message, Captain, the message about the generational issues and is really important. And I think we recognize as a Port Council the criticality of having this, pipeline from, as you said, hose piping, or from the academies up to the folks that have been here for 30 years. And, that's a really important part of our success. And we really value that.
Thank you, sir. And not to cut any of you guys off, I appreciate your time, but my job is backing into a slip right now. So I have to go tend to that.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Smooth sailing.
Thank you.
Other public comment?
Don't have any.
Doesn't appear that anyone's raised their hand.
Okay, well, that was a very constructive meeting. Thank you, everybody. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I hear a second.
Second.
All right, roll call. In favor of adjourning, Joe,
Aye.
John,
Isbury, yes.
Nat,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Rob, aye. Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.